change the subject.
No, but we must, and we will. Today we are changing the subject of the formula. Welcome back, guys. Today we continue on with the mathematical skills, and today, as I've already said, we are changing the subject of the formula. Before we get into this, please make sure that you start a like cycle with the like button. Remember, the cycle starts with you. Then subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification icon so that you can get updated whenever I upload. I am on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you search for NV Science Lives, you will be able to find more Science Live there. Now, let's get into this biz of changing the subject of the formula. For this video, if you just understand your units and you just know how to work with the units, if you know how to convert them, then you should have a good time. But if you don't know how to do that, don't worry. I have prepared a video for you. I have linked it in the description box below. In order to teach you how to change the subject of the formula today, I'm going to be working with a formula known as the density formula. The density formula is very simple. It is simply mass over volume. So today I'm going to teach you how to rearrange this formula so that if you want to calculate mass out of it, you should be able to, and also if you want to calculate volume out of it, you also should be able to do that, since these are both variables of this equation. So I've made this little orange triangle over here. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I faced it a lot when I was in school. As the triangle stands, it is density is equal to mass at the top and volume at the bottom. If you have a look at the triangle, if you wanted to calculate volume, it would be mass over density. And of course, if you wanted to calculate mass, it will be mass is equal to density times volume. And that is basically the simplest way in which you change the subject of a formula. Just to give you a better understanding of this formula, we will now use it to do some calculations using gold as our element of choice because, well, it is my element of choice and gold is my favorite element. Density of all elements are all known, so it is very easy to just go and Google and find the density of whatever element you are looking to be working with. If you look here, you see that the density of gold is 19.32 grams per centimeter cubed. Now this is where the trick with the units come into play. The units for density that I've chosen to work with are grams per centimeter cubed. Now what needs to happen is that the mass that I'm going to calculate out of it is going to be in grams, or a volume that I'm going to calculate out of it will need to be in centimeter cubed, which means that if I'm working with either volume or mass, I would have to, if they are not already, I would have to convert them into grams or centimeter cubed. And now I will do an example for you just to illustrate that point. So I have the density of gold as 19.32 grams per centimeter cube, and I have a volume of 5 centimeter cube. And here I want to calculate what is the mass of gold that I have. If we look at the formula for density, it is mass over volume. But when I want to calculate mass, it is density times volume. And of course, I do have density and I do have volume. So I just plug in those figures into the formula. Because my density is in centimeter cubed and my volume is in centimeter cubed, I can easily just perform this calculation without having to get them to meet at a particular unit. I simply plug this into my calculator, 19.32 times 5, and I get the answer, 96.6 grams. And that is basically it. That is how you change the subject of a formula. Now the density formula is very, very simple. As you could see, there were only 3 things that we were changing around, so it was all very easy and it was all very nice. But we need to try this with slightly more complicated formula just to make sure that you guys really know how to change the subject of a formula. When changing the subject of the formula, you need to consider the opposites in mathematical operations. For example, positive is opposite of negative, multiplication is opposite of division, and the square is opposite of the square root. Every now and again, you'd have to get into much deeper mathematics where you might have to factorize and maybe even expand brackets. Now let's look at this formula and let's try and make t the subject of the formula. The first thing we need to do is get rid of all of the variables that are not directly connected to the t, and in this case it is the u. So on the right hand side, the u is positive. So in order to remove the u from the right hand side, we need to subtract the u. but we know whatever we do to the right hand side, we have to do onto the left hand side. So we subtract u on both sides, and this will eliminate the u from the right hand side. When it arrives on the left hand side, it is now negative. So the left hand side will now be v minus u. And our equation now reads v minus u is equal to at. Now that we've gotten rid of the u, now it is time to get rid of the a so that the t is left on the right hand side on its own. Now we have to look at what a is doing to the t. A is multiplying to the t. So in order to get rid of it, we need to do the opposite of multiplying, which is to divide. So we divide the right hand side by a. And again, we know whatever we do to the right hand side, we need to do to the left hand side. So when we divide the right hand side by a, we also divide the left hand side by a. Now this has gotten rid of the a on the right hand side, and we just have the t sitting on its own. And then our overall formula now reads v minus u divided by a is equal to t. And there we go, folks. We have done it. We have made t the subject of the formula. Now let's go into the variance where we have square roots and cube roots in our formula. And we will look at this formula right here for volume. Here I want to make small r the subject of the formula. And as you guessed it, I will remind you of the rules again. The first thing that we need to do is remove all of the variables that are not connected to the r cubed directly. The first thing to do with this equation is that we need to get rid of that 3. That 3 on the right hand side is dividing the 4. So we need to consider the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So we will multiply both sides by 3 in order to get rid of the 3 on the right hand side. What this gives us is 3v is equal to 4 pi r cubed. Now we need to remove the 4 pi on the right hand side in order to leave the r cubed on its own. And how we do this is we divide both sides by 4 pi. And what that gives us is the right hand side is now r cubed on its own, and the left hand side has got 3v divided by 4 pi. Now we need to consider what is the opposite of a cube. And what we know that to be is a cube root. So what now we need to do is we'll cube root both sides. And what this gives us is it gives us the r on its own. And then our left hand side now reads the cube root of 3 multiplied by v divided by 4 pi. And that is how we have changed our subjects of the formula to r. Just to give you a quick recap, whenever we change the subjects of the formula, we always need to remember our opposites. Positive is opposite of negative, multiplication is opposite of division, and the square is opposite of the square root. When we have a formula such as this with multiple variables in it, the first thing we do is get rid of the variable that is not connected to the subjects that we want to make in the formula. And that is basically how you change the subjects of the formula. I will see you in the next video where I will be teaching you about rate. What is rate? I don't know. You'll have to catch it in the next video. It was lovely hanging out with you, and now I need to go make some slides about rate. Bye. Thank you for watching. Sorry. Now bye.